Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Our first story is titled, My Fiancé's Ex Tried to Blackmail Him into Leaving Me. This part of my life honestly felt like a horror movie while I was living it, but looking back, I'm a little glad for the way it opened my eyes to the world. My name is Vivian. I'm 28 years old and I worked as a pediatric nurse. I've been with my fiancé, Jay, for 3 years now, and we got engaged 6 months ago. Everything was perfect until his ex-girlfriend decided to throw a wrench into our happiness. Jay and I met at a mutual friend's barbecue. He was charming, funny, and we hit it off right away. We started dating soon after, and it felt like I had finally found my other half. Jay works as a software engineer, and he's the kindest, most supportive partner I could ask for. When Jay proposed, I was over the moon. We started planning our wedding set for next spring. Life was good, and I was excited about our future together. That is until Jay's ex-girlfriend, Yuri, showed up out of nowhere and turned our world upside down. I knew about Yuri, of course. Jay had told me about their relationship early on. They dated for 2 years in college, but broke up when Yuri cheated on him. It was a painful experience for Jay, but he had moved on, and I never worried about her being a threat to our relationship. Boy, was I wrong. It all started about 2 months ago. Jay came home from work looking stressed and distracted. At first, I thought it was just a tough day at the office, but when I asked him about it, he hesitated before speaking. That's when he dropped the bomb. Yuri had contacted him and was threatening to release private photos and videos from their relationship if he didn't break up with me and get back together with her. I was stunned. The idea that someone could be so cruel and manipulative was beyond my comprehension. Jay showed me the messages Yuri had sent him, and they were vicious. She alternated between sweet-talking him, reminiscing about their time together, and making brutal threats. She gave him a week to break up with me and come back to her, or she'd start releasing the photos and videos. We spent that night talking for hours, trying to come up with a plan. Jay was terrified that if those photos got out, it could ruin his career and his relationships with his family. I was determined not to let this psycho ex-girlfriend break us up. We can't let her win, Jay, I said, holding his hand tightly. We're stronger than this. Jay nodded, but I could see the fear in his eyes. I'm so sorry, Vivian. I never thought she'd do something like this. Over the next few days, Yuri's behavior became increasingly erratic and alarming. She started by sending Jay multiple messages every hour, ranging from declarations of undying love to vicious insults and threats. When Jay didn't respond, she escalated her tactics. One morning, Jay woke up to find his car door covered in Post-it notes, each one bearing a message from Yuri. Some were love notes, others were apologies, and some contained disturbing threats. We had to spend hours peeling them all off, and it left us both feeling violated and on edge. We cleared the garage to make room for the car at night after that. Yuri then started showing up at Jay's workplace. She'd wait in the parking lot trying to corner him as he left the office. Jay had to start varying his schedule and asking colleagues to walk him to his car. It was humiliating for him, but he was scared of what she might do. Things got even creepier when Yuri somehow got hold of my work schedule. She started sending Jay photos of me leaving the hospital after my shifts, proving that she was stalking not just him, but me as well. It was terrifying to think she was watching us, waiting for an opportunity to cause trouble. One night, we came home to find our apartment door slightly ajar. Nothing was stolen, but things had been moved around. A framed photo of Jay and me was face down on the coffee table, and there was a lipstick kiss mark on our bedroom mirror. We couldn't prove it was Yuri, but we both knew it had to be her. We changed our locks the very next day. Yuri's social media activity became another source of stress. She started posting thinly veiled references to Jay and our relationship. She'd share quotes about betrayal and lost love, old photos of her and Jay together, and even started a countdown on her Instagram stories. We didn't know what the countdown was for, but it filled us with dread. As the deadline Yuri had given Jay approached, her messages became more frantic and unhinged. She sent long, rambling emails detailing their past relationship and why they were meant to be together. She created fake social media profiles, pretending to be women Jay had supposedly been cheating on, me with and tried to send me messages exposing him. The final straw came when Yuri somehow got hold of my parents' phone number. She called them in the middle of the night, crying hysterically and telling them that Jay was a cheater and that they needed to convince me to leave him. My parents were confused and upset, and it took hours to calm them down and explain the situation. Realizing we couldn't handle this our own way, we decided to seek legal help. With the help and referral of one of Jay's co-workers, we found a lawyer nearby who specialized in cases like this. During our consultation, we laid out everything that had happened, showing her the messages, photos, and other evidence of Yuri's harassment. She listened carefully, her expression growing more serious with each new detail we shared. When we finished, she leaned forward, her eyes sharp and determined. "What Yuri is doing is definitely illegal," she said. "It's blackmail, harassment, and potentially stalking. If she releases these photos and videos, we can add revenge porn to the list of charges." With her guidance, we formulated a plan. The first step was to send Yuri a strongly worded cease and desist letter. Linda warned us that this might not be enough to stop Yuri, given her erratic behavior, but it was a necessary legal step and one that would give us more evidence to show if the problem ever went to court. As predicted, the cease and desist letter only seemed to enrage Yuri further. She responded by ramping up her harassment. She created a website dedicated to exposing Jay, filling it with out-of-context photos and fabricated stories about their relationship. She even included a countdown clock, ticking down to when she threatened to release the private photos and videos. Yuri's actions were taking a toll on both of us. Jay was stressed and guilt-ridden, constantly apologizing for dragging me into this mess. I was scared and angry, but I was also determined not to let Yuri win. We were in this together, and I wasn't going to let her tear us apart. The situation came to a head when Yuri actually followed through on her threats. She sent some of the private photos to Jay's boss, leading to an uncomfortable meeting with HR. Thankfully, Jay's company was understanding once he explained the situation, but it was a humiliating experience for him. Not content with targeting just Jay, Yuri also sent some inappropriate content to my work email. I had to have an awkward conversation with my supervisor, explaining the situation and asking them to block Yuri's email address. It was mortifying, but like Jay's workplace, my colleagues were supportive. Realizing that Yuri wasn't going to stop on her own, we decided to pursue legal action. We went back to our lawyer's office armed with all the new evidence of Yuri's escalating behavior. She immediately started preparing the necessary documents to file charges for harassment, attempted blackmail, and revenge porn. But Yuri wasn't done yet. In a move that showed just how unhinged she had become, she actually showed up at our apartment one evening. We hadn't been expecting anyone, so when we heard a knock at the door, we were confused. Jay went to answer it, and I heard his shocked voice say Yuri's name. I rushed to the door to find Yuri, clearly drunk, trying to push her way into our apartment. She alternated between professing her love for Jay and hurling insults at me. When Jay finally told her to leave, she flew into a rage, attempting to physically attack me. Jay had to physically block her while I called the police. By the time the police arrived, Yuri had stormed off, but not before screaming threats at us. We filed a police report immediately, and our lawyer used this incident to expedite the restraining order paperwork. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings. We filed charges against Yuri for harassment, blackmail, and revenge porn. The restraining order was granted, barring her from contacting either of us or coming near our home or workplaces. But even with the restraining order in place, Yuri's obsessive behavior continued. She violated the order twice within the first week. The first time, she showed up at Jay's office, causing a scene in the lobby before security removed her. The second time, she tried to confront me outside the hospital where I work. Both times, she was arrested, but it did little to deter her. Yuri's online harassment also continued. She created multiple fake social media accounts to bypass our blocks, using them to leave nasty comments on our posts and sent threatening messages. She even started contacting our friends and family, trying to turn them against us with her twisted version of events. One particularly disturbing incident occurred when Yuri somehow got access to our wedding website. She changed all the details, replacing our venue with a funeral home and adding macabre touches to our love story. It took us days to sort out the mess and reassure our guests that it was all a cruel prank. As our court date approached, Yuri's actions became even more erratic. She started sending packages to our apartment, sometimes filled with torn-up photos of Jay and her together, other times containing bizarre, threatening notes made from cut-out magazine letters. It was like living in a twisted thriller movie. The case finally went to court 3 months after Yuri's first blackmail attempt. Jay and I both had to testify, recounting everything that had happened. It was a grueling experience, having to relive all the stress and fear of the past few months. But we got through it together, supporting each other's every step of the way. Yuri's lawyer tried to paint her as a broken-hearted ex who just wanted another chance, but the evidence against her was overwhelming. The judge wasn't sympathetic to her broken heart defense, especially given the malicious and persistent nature of her actions. In the end, Yuri was found guilty on all charges. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison with mandatory counseling. The judge also ordered her to delete all photos and videos of Jay and to pay a hefty fine. As we left the courthouse after the sentencing, Jay and I felt a mixture of relief and exhaustion. It was finally over, but the ordeal had left its mark on both of us. We held hands tightly as we walked to our car, silently reaffirming our commitment to each other. In the months that followed, life slowly returned to normal. Jay and I threw ourselves into wedding planning, determined not to let Yuri's action taint our happiness. We both started seeing a therapist to work through the stress and trauma of the whole ordeal, which helped immensely. Our wedding day arrived, and it was everything we've dreamed of and more. As we exchanged vows, I looked into Jay's eyes and saw nothing but love and commitment. We had weathered the storm together and come out stronger on the other side. During his speech at the reception, Jay surprised me by addressing what we'd been through. He thanked me for standing by him during the darkest time of his life, for fighting for our love, and when it would have been easier to walk away. He promised to spend the rest of his life trying to be worthy of that love and dedication. There wasn't a dry eye in the house after that speech, least of all mine. As I sit here writing this, it's been a year since our wedding, and life is good. Jay and I are stronger than ever, and we're even talking about starting a family soon. Yuri is still in prison, and while the experience left its scars, we refuse to let it define us or our relationship. The ordeal with Yuri taught us a lot about ourselves and our relationship. We learned that we could face anything as long as we stood together. It also showed us who our true friends were, the ones who stood by us even when Yuri was spreading lies and trying to turn peoples against us. One unexpected outcome of this whole situation was the strengthening of our relationships with our families. My parents, who have been somewhat skeptical of Jay at first, saw how devoted he was to me throughout the ordeal. They now consider him a son. Jay's family, who had been worried about how the situation might affect their son's future, were impressed by how I stood by him. We've grown much closer to both our families as a result. We've also become advocates for others facing similar situations. We've shared our story at support groups for victims of stalking and harassment, hoping that our experience might help others. It's been healing for us to turn such a negative experience into something positive. The incident has made us more cautious in some ways. We're more careful about our online presence and privacy settings. We've installed a security system in our house, and we're more aware of our surroundings when we're out. But we refuse to let fear rule our lives. We still go out. We still post on social media. We still live our lives fully. We just do it with a bit more awareness now. One of the most important lessons we learned was the value of communication. Throughout the whole ordeal, Jay and I made sure to talk openly about our fears, our frustrations, and our hopes. We didn't let Yuri's actions create doubt or mistrust between us. If anything, it brought us closer together. We've also learned the importance of self-care. The stress of the situation took a toll on both of us physically and emotionally. We've made a commitment to prioritize our mental and physical health. We exercise together, we make time for date nights, and we're not afraid to seek help when we need it. Looking back, I'm amazed at how far we've come. There were moments when the stress seemed overwhelming, when Yuri's actions made us question if we could ever have a normal life. But we persevered. We fought for our love, for our future, and for our right to live our lives without fear. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that love really can conquer all. When you find the right person, someone who stands by you through thick and thin, hold on to them tight. No amount of blackmail, threats, or psycho exes can break that kind of bond. To anyone out there facing a similar situation, know that you're not alone. Stand your ground, fight back. And don't let anyone come between you and the person you love. It might be hard, but I promise you it's worth it. Remember that there are laws to protect you and there are people who can help you. Don't be afraid to reach out for support, whether it's to friends, family, or professionals. You don't have to face this kind of situation alone. It's also important to remember that the actions of one person don't define an entire gender or all ex-partners. Jay and I have both had to work through trust issues as a result of Yuri's actions, but we've made a conscious effort not to let this experience color our view of all people. In the end, love won out. Jay and I are living proof that happy endings do exist even after the storm. We're looking forward to our future together, stronger and more in love than ever before. And really, isn't that the best revenge of all? Our story isn't over. It's just beginning. We're excited about what the future holds for us. We're talking about buying a house, starting a family, and building a life together. These are the things we choose to focus on, not the dark cloud that Yuri tried to cast over our lives. To Yuri, wherever she is, I hope she's gotten the help she needs. What she did was wrong and it caused us a lot of pain, but we don't wish her ill. We just want to live our lives in peace, and we hope she can find peace too. And to Jay, my rock, my partner, my love, thank you. Thank you for your strength, your honesty, and your unwavering love. What we went through would have broken many couples, but it only made us stronger. I fall in love with you more each day, and I can't wait to see what our future holds. So here's to love, to resilience, and to a happily ever afters. Even when the path to get there is a bit more complicated than we expected, our story is proof that with love, determination, and the right partner by your side, you can overcome anything. And that's a pretty beautiful thing. Here are my thoughts about the story. Most people would have run for the hills if their partner's ex started pulling this kind of crap. But not Vivian. She stood by her man like a boss. I mean, imagine coming home to find your door open and lipstick on your mirror. I'd be sleeping with one eye open and a baseball bat under my pillow. I'm actually more surprised by the fact that they didn't do that more than the entire psycho ex in the background. But Jay, man, I feel for the guy. Having those private photos and videos hanging over his head must have been a nightmare. It's a good reminder to all of us to be careful about what we share, even with people we trust. You never know when someone might turn on you. It doesn't have to be an ex, it can be a friend or even a family member. Betrayal hurts because the person was so close to you, not because they were a stranger to you. Now let's talk about Yuri for a sec. What in the actual hell was she thinking? I've seen some crazy ex stories before, but this one takes the cake. Frosting and the whole damn bakery. The post-it notes on the car, the fake cheating profiles, calling Vivian's parents in the middle of the night. It's like she was following some kind of how to be the world's ex ever guidebook. But you know what really got me? The wedding website stunt, changing their venue to a funeral home. That's some next level twisted creativity right there. I shouldn't laugh, but come on, you gotta admit it's kind of darkly hilarious in a wow, she's completely lost it kind of way. God, imagine if someone had genuinely thought there was a schedule change, it was about to be bad. But hey, I gotta give props to Vivian and Jay for how they handled this mess. Getting a lawyer involved was smart. Their lawyer sounds like an old badass. I'd want her in my corner if I ever had a psycho ex on my case. The courtroom scene had me on the edge of my seat. I was half expecting Yuri to burst in like, "Objection!" and start lunging at everyone like a feral raccoon. But nah, justice actually got served for once. 2 years in, the slammer might teach her to chill the hell out. Now let's get real for a second. This story is funny in parts, sure, but it's also a serious wake-up call. Stalking and harassment are no joke. It's easy to laugh at the crazy antics, but this kind of behavior can really mess people up. Vivian and Jay are going to be dealing with the fallout from this for a long time. But you know what? I love that they turned this nightmare into something positive, sharing their story to help others. That's going to help someone out there, and that's beautiful. And the fact that it brought them closer together, chef's kiss, stunning finale, my friends. I think my favorite part of the whole story is how they refused to let Yuri win. They went ahead with their wedding. They're talking about starting a family. They're living their best lives. That's the ultimate middle finger to anyone who tries to bring you down. All right, real talk time. If any of you out there are dealing with a situation like this, don't try to handle it alone. Get help. Document everything, and don't be afraid to get the law involved. And if you're tempted to go all Yuri on an ex, just don't. Seriously, it's not worth it. Go to therapy, hit the gym, binge watch some Netflix, whatever. Just leave your ex alone, please. Otherwise, I might end up reading about you on my channel, and I don't mean that in a good way. And now, guys, we will move on to the second story of the video. Please like the video if you have enjoyed it so far. The story starts like this. My brother tried to frame me for his financial crimes. Growing up, my older brother James and I were always close. We shared a bedroom, played on the same sports teams, and even ended up working at the same company after college. But they say you never truly know someone, and man, did that turn out to be true in my case. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. James had always been ambitious, but as we grew older, that ambition took on a darker edge. It started in high school. James was determined to be valedictorian, and he'd stop at nothing to achieve it. I remember one incident vividly. James's main academic rival was a girl I remember talking to once or twice. She was brilliant, kind, and just as hardworking as James. For a while, they were neck and neck for the top spot in the class. One day, about a month before graduation, she came to school in tears. Someone had broken into her locker and stolen her final project for AP Biology, a project worth 30% of her grade. Without it, her GPA would take a massive hit, effectively ending her chance at valedictorian. I didn't want to believe it, but I had my suspicions. The night before, James had come home late, looking flushed and excited. When I asked him where he'd been, he just smiled and said, "Taking care of business, little bro." The girl never proved anything, and James became valedictorian. I tried to convince myself it was just a coincidence, that my brother wouldn't do something so underhanded. But deep down, I knew the truth. College was more of the same. James joined a prestigious fraternity, and within a year, he was president. The previous president, a senior that had been pretty popular with all the guys there, had mysteriously decided to step down mid-year. Rumors circulated that James had dug up some dirt on him and blackmailed him, but nothing was ever proven. I confronted James about it once. He just laughed and said, "Politics, Alex. It's all about knowing how to play the game." After college, we both landed jobs at the place where it all went down, which was a mid-sized tech company. I was in the marketing department while James started in finance. It didn't take long for him to start climbing the corporate ladder. There was the time he accidentally sent an email exposing his supervisor's affair with an intern to the entire finance department. The supervisor resigned in disgrace, and James was promoted to fill the position. Then there was the project he stole from a colleague. She had been working on a new financial model for months. The night before she was due to present it to the board, James stayed late at the office. The next morning, he presented her work as his own. She was devastated, but she couldn't prove anything. James got another promotion. Each time something like this happened, I tried to talk to James about it, but he always had an excuse, a rationalization. "It's just business, Alex," he'd say. "You've got to be ruthless if you want to succeed in this world." Despite all this, part of me still looked up to James. He was my big brother after all. He was smarter, more ambitious, and more charismatic than me. I was happy for his success, even if I sometimes felt uneasy about how he achieved it. Within 5 years, James had worked his way up to become the company's financial controller. He always was the golden child, admired by our parents, respected by his colleagues, and feared by his rivals. I was proud of him in a way, even if I didn't always agree with his methods. Things that the company were going well, the company was growing, and there was talk of going public in the next few years. James seemed to be thriving in his role, always talking about new financial strategies and investments that were boosting the company's bottom line. I thought maybe he had finally found legitimate success, that he no longer needed to resort to underhanded tactics. But then things started to get weird. It began with small things. James started asking me odd questions about the company's financial systems. "Hey, Alex, you ever access the accounts payable system? Or do you know if marketing has its own expense account?" At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured he was just being thorough in his job. Then came the request. "Hey, bro, can you log into the system for me? I forgot my password and IT is taking forever to reset it." Or, "Can you approve this invoice for me? I'm swamped and it'll take you 2 seconds." Again, I didn't see any harm in it. We were brothers after all. And despite his past behavior, I trusted him. Or maybe I just wanted to trust him. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags. But hindsight is 20/20, right? The real trouble started about 6 months ago. I was called into a meeting with the CEO, the head of HR, and 2 people I'd never seen before who introduced themselves as external auditors. My stomach dropped as soon as I walked into the room. Something was very, very wrong. The CEO, a normally friendly guy that would make light conversation with us every morning, looked at me with a mix of disappointment and anger. "Alex," he said, his voice grave, "we've uncovered some serious financial irregularities in the company's accounts. Funds have been misappropriated, fake invoices have been processed, and it appears that someone has been embezzling money from the company for months." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "That's terrible," I managed to say, "but why are you telling me this?" His face hardened. "Because, Alex, all the evidence points to you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Me? Embezzling? I could barely balance my own checkbook, let alone pull off some complex financial fraud. "That's impossible," I sputtered. "There has to be some mistake. I would never." The head of HR, a stern woman that had been at the company for as long as I could remember, cut me off. "Alex, we have records of you accessing the financial system multiple times over the past few months. Your login credentials were used to approve numerous suspicious transactions and..." She paused, looking even more serious. "We found a large sum of money deposited into your personal bank account that doesn't match your salary or any known bonuses." My head was spinning. I don't understand. I mean, yes, I've logged into the system a few times to help James when he was busy, but I never approved anything suspicious, and I certainly haven't received any mysterious deposits. One of the auditors spoke up. "Can you explain why you were accessing financial systems that are well outside your job responsibilities in marketing?" I tried to explain about helping James, but even as the words left my mouth, I realized how bad it sounded. Why hadn't James mentioned this to them? Where was he anyway? As if reading my mind, the CEO said, "Your brother James was the one who first noticed the discrepancies and brought them to our attention. He's been very helpful in the investigation so far." I felt like I was going to be sick. This couldn't be happening. James had noticed the problems, but he was the one who had asked me to log in and approve things for him, unless the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. James. It had to be James. He had set me up, used me as a patsy for his own crimes. But why? And how could I prove it? The meeting went on for what felt like hours. They showed me the transaction records, bank statements, and system logs, all seeming to point to my guilt. I denied everything, tried to explain about James asking for my help, but I could see the disbelief in their eyes. By the end of it, I was placed on immediate suspension, pending further investigation. They also informed me that they would be involving the police. I left the office in a daze, my personal belongings in a box, my employee badge confiscated. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from James. Nothing serious, nothing incriminating, but a suspiciously curious text asking how things had gone down after he'd been the one to make these false claims against me. At that moment, I felt a rage like I'd never experienced before. My own brother, the person I'd looked up to my entire life, despite his flaws, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. He'd framed me for his crimes, potentially ruining my career, my reputation, and my life. But as the initial shock and anger faded, a cold determination set in. I wasn't going to let James get away with this. I was going to clear my name and make sure he faced the consequences of his actions. But how? I spent the next few days in a frenzy of activity. I knew I didn't have much time before the police got involved, so I had to move fast. First things first, I needed a lawyer. I called up an old college friend who had become a hotshot corporate lawyer. I explained the situation to her, and thankfully, she agreed to take my case. Alex, she said after I'd filled her in on all the details, this is going to be tough. Your brother has done a pretty thorough job of framing you, but there are always traces left behind in cases like this. We just need to find them. With her guidance, I started gathering every piece of evidence I could. I went through all my emails, text messages, and even dug out some old handwritten notes from conversations with James. I also reached out to some of my coworkers, carefully explaining the situation and asking if they remember James ever asking them to log into systems for him. To my relief, a few of them did remember similar incidents. One of them, a guy named Tom from the IT department, even told me something interesting. Yeah, James asked me to reset his password a bunch of times, Tom said. Said he kept forgetting it. I thought it was weird, but he was the financial controller, you know? I figured he knew what he was doing. This was good. It showed a pattern of James trying to distance himself from the fraudulent activities, but it still wasn't enough to definitely prove my innocence. The real breakthrough came about a week into my suspension. I was going through my bank statements for the 100th time when I noticed something odd. The large deposit that HR had mentioned, it had come from an account I didn't recognize, but there was something familiar about the account number. I called my old friend and lawyer immediately. I think I found something, I told her. This account number, it's similar to the one James uses for his personal savings. It's off by just one digit. She was excited. This is good, Alex, really good. It suggests that whoever made the deposit might have mistyped the account number. We can use this. With this new lead, she was able to convince the company and the auditors to dig deeper into the financial records. They discovered that the account that had made the deposit to me had also made several other large deposits to an account that was definitely James's. But James wasn't going down without a fight. When confronted with this new evidence, he claimed that I must have set up the account to frame him. It was a desperate move, but it meant that the investigation dragged on even longer. During this time, I wasn't allowed to return to work, and the stress was taking its toll. I couldn't sleep, could barely eat, and jumped every time my phone rang, worried it might be the police coming to arrest me. My parents were confused and upset, not sure who to believe. It was the lowest point of my life. But I refused to give up. I knew I was innocent and I was determined to prove it. My lawyer and I continued to dig, looking for any detail that might help my case. Our perseverance paid off about a month into the investigation. One of the auditors, a sharp-eyed woman, noticed something in the computer logs. "There's a discrepancy here," she told us during a meeting. "The timestamps on some of the fraudulent transactions don't match the login times for Alex's account. In fact, they match perfectly with times when James was logged in from his home IP address." It was the smoking gun we needed. James had been careless, probably thinking that no one would look that closely at the exact times of the transactions, but his oversight was my salvation. With this new evidence, things moved quickly. The company called in the police and James was brought in for questioning. I'll never forget the look on his face when he was led out of the office in handcuffs. He looked scared. For the first time in his life, James wasn't in control. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of police interviews, meetings with company executives, and long strategy sessions with my lawyer friend. But finally, after what felt like an eternity, I was officially cleared of all wrongdoing. James, on the other hand, was charged with embezzlement, fraud, and attempted framing. The day I returned to work was surreal. People who had been avoiding me for weeks suddenly wanted to chat. The CEO personally apologized for doubting me. It should have felt good, but mostly I just felt tired. As I sat at my desk trying to catch up on weeks of missed work, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Alex, it's James. I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to cut James out of my life completely. But another part, the part that still remembered the brother who had taught me to ride a bike and helped me with my homework, couldn't just let it go. I decided to visit James in jail. I needed to understand why he had done this, why he had been willing to destroy my life to save his own. The visit was difficult. James looked terrible, his usual confidence replaced by a haunted look. When he saw me, he broke down crying. "I'm sorry, Alex," he apologized. "I never meant for any of this to happen. It started small, just a little creative accounting to make the numbers look better. But then it snowballed, and before I knew it, I was in too deep. When the auditor started asking questions, I panicked. I thought if I could pin it on you, I'd have time to fix everything." I listened to his explanation, feeling a mix of anger, pity, and disappointment. "You could have come to me," I said. "We could have figured something out together. Instead, you were willing to let me go to jail for your crimes." James nodded, tears still streaming down his face. "I know I was a coward. I'll regret it for the rest of my life." As I left the jail that day, I felt a strange sense of closure. James's actions had nearly ruined my life, but in a way, they had also set me free. For years, I had lived in his shadow, always feeling like a lesser brother. But now I had stood on my own, fought for myself, and come out stronger. The aftermath of the scandal was tough. James was sentenced to 5 years in prison and ordered to pay back all the money he had embezzled. Our family was torn apart, with our parents struggling to reconcile the son they thought they knew with the man who had committed these crimes. As for me, I threw myself into my work. The company, perhaps feeling guilty about how they had treated me, offered me a promotion. I accepted, determined to prove myself on my own merits. It's been a year since everything went down. James is still in prison, and our relationship, while not completely severed, is fundamentally changed. We exchange letters occasionally, but I don't know if I'll ever be able to fully trust him again. The experience changed me in ways I'm still discovering. I'm more cautious now, more aware of the potential for betrayal, even from those closest to me. But I'm also stronger, more confident in my ability to stand up for myself and fight for what's right. As I sit here finishing up this story, I can't help but reflect on how differently things could have turned out if I hadn't noticed that small discrepancy in the bank account numbers, if my friend and lawyer hadn't pushed for a deeper investigation, if that sharp auditor hadn't spotted the timestamp inconsistencies. I could be the one sitting in a jail cell right now, paying for crimes I didn't commit. It's a sobering thought and a reminder of how fragile our lives and reputations can be. but it's also a testament to the power of perseverance, of refusing to give up even when all the odds seem stacked against you. I don't know what the future holds. Will James and I ever repair our relationship? Will I ever fully shake off the shadow of suspicion that this incident cast over me? Only time will tell. But I do know this. I'm not the same person I was before all this happened. I'm stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to create my own path in life. To anyone out there who might find themselves in a similar situation, falsely accused, betrayed by someone they trust, I want to say this. Don't give up. The truth has a way of coming out, even if it takes time and hard work to uncover it. Please stand your ground, gather your evidence, and fight for your innocence. It won't be easy, but it's worth it. As for me, I'm looking forward to the future. There's a whole world of opportunities out there, and for the first time in my life, I feel ready to seize them on my own terms. No more living in anyone's shadow. It's time for me to shine. Here are my thoughts about this story. James, what the hell? This dude is like the poster child for how to be a sociopath 101. I mean, stealing his classmate's project in high school? That is not a normal high schooler, because who in their right mind could do something like that? Study harder if that's so much of an issue. It wasn't like he was losing by some large margin either. He just potentially ruined a girl's future for a title everyone will forget in about a few years. And it only gets worse from there. By the time he's framing his own brother for embezzlement, I'm sitting here like, dude, who hurt you? And honestly, shame on Alex too for not acting on the information, for not doing anything even when all the pieces of the puzzle were right there. Shame. Bystanders that don't do anything and let the criminal get away are almost as bad as the criminal themselves. Don't you think all of this could have been avoided if you'd pointed it out sooner? Got from James the consequences he deserved? It all escalated, and now look where things went. Another point of contention is it's how Alex, our narrator, kept giving James chance after chance. I was practically yelling at my screen. Stop trusting him, you idiot. But I get it. You know, it's his brother. We all want to believe the best about our family, even when they're showing us their worst. And I guess Alex making excuse after excuse for James is also because of that, because they're family. But wake up, guys. Family members, no matter how close you may think you are to them, are just as capable of committing crimes as the next person over. Don't let that slip past you. But if we really want to get into the more satisfying parts of the story, rather than just get on Alex about how he should have done something sooner, the part that really had me on the edge of my seat was when Alex started putting the pieces together. That moment when he noticed the bank account number being off by one digit, the sigh of relief that escaped me was real. And can we give a shout out to the unnamed lawyer and sharp-eyed auditor? MVPs of this story, for real. Without them, Alex might be rocking an orange jumpsuit right now instead of James. But here's what I can't stop thinking about. What happens next? Like, James is in jail, sure, but he's going to get out eventually. Is Alex going to be looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life? And those poor parents, man, imagine raising two kids and having one turn out to be a backstabbing embezzler. That's got to mess you up. Of course, I also question whether or not they were also suspicious of his behavior or not. But whatever, we can move on from that nitpick. In the end, though, I gotta say I'm impressed with Alex. Dude went through hell and came out stronger. If I were him, I'd probably be curled up in a ball somewhere, rocking back and forth. But he's out there taking on new challenges, living his best life. Respect, man, serious respect. But maybe don't turn a blind eye to the literal crimes your family member is committing. Just a word of advice. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again tomorrow.